Mr. Cherokee, like I make an announcement?
Yes.
During the break, I handed out these spreadsheets, and this is all of the new initiatives with a brief explanation, and also the group that submitted the new initiative. So as you're going through the group budgets, hopefully you can refer to this listing, and that will give you some other information. I'm calling them as we get to them.
Thank you.
Okay, ready to continue, Doug?
Thanks, sir. The next tab is a one-page report. It's a divisional summary. Has all the funds, irregardless of where the money's coming from. Again, we're looking at it from where's the money going out from. And you can see that here's all 18 groups or divisions. This gives you an idea of the size of each of our groups as far as funding is concerned and how that's compared to 07. Health service obviously stands out with a $28 million decrease. That's obviously the health clinic in Muskogee. Are there any questions on this page before we go straight into the groups? Okay. Okay, now I'll be referring to the slides. Okay, I gotta get through all this.
I already had it where it was supposed to
Okay. We'll start off with the office of the chief. Apologize, I thought I already had it where it was supposed to be. Callie did this to me.
Excuse me?
Okay, here we go.
Let me unplug the batteries.
Oh yeah, I did that to you, didn't I? Okay. Office of the Chief. Okay, here's that group, Chief's group. Total budget compared to 06 actuals, significant increase, obviously. The increase from the 06 actual spending 3.6 up to the 9.2. There's several things in there that's driving that up. A $2.2 million increase in employee appreciation. This is 07. This is 07's budget compared to 06 actuals I'm talking about. Charitable contribution experienced an increase in 07 of $1.2 million. There was a $500,000 fund for the constitutional defense, and $500,000 get out the vote came into this 07. Okay, so then we step up to the 08 budget, and there's a $2.8 million increase there, with another $1 million added to the Constitutional Defense Fund, and the charitable contributions experienced another $700,000 increase here. Okay. Looking at it by funding source, you'll see that the lion's share of this is the tribal funds in the chief's office. And the chief's total salaries. Obviously, there's significant staffing increases with some departments that are coming into this group. You can see the staffing numbers that are moving. Now on page 57, we'll talk about each department within the chief's group. You'll notice that, like the charts depicted, there's a 30% increase over this last year's budget and a $8.5 million increase over 06. The principal chief's department himself, where he resides, is carrying a significant amount, the lion's share of those increases, with, as you notice, a 2-position budget increase for staffing. The defense fund, as I mentioned, contributes $520,000. went from 520 to 1.5 million, actually. The remaining 1.2 million of this increase is the charitable donation budget, which has a donation to PACE programs, first year operating expense, we've already discussed that, and the Employee Appreciation Day that we've mentioned. Compared to the $6 million increase over 06 actuals, largely the Constitutional Defense Fund again of 1.5, charitable donation of 1.3, which that was a new budget that came into its own budget in 07. It used to be rolled up under our Gen Fund office in the Treasurer's Department. Now it's coming into this in the Principal Chief's Department. And the balance of the increase in the Employee Appreciation Budget. That the Employee Appreciation Budget was $108,000 in 06, so it's relatively new activity that really came into its own in 07. The Government Relations Department under the Chief's group has a slight increase, a minimal increase over 07, and an obviously significant increase compared to 06 actuals. And that, to get out the vote, the balance of the increase in the Tribal Relations budget and significant increases in government relations of $108,000 or 58%, and the Legislative Office budget of $97,000 or 56%. Now, since this is our, well, you go ahead and finish these departments, and then we'll get into the reports behind these commentaries. Because what we're looking at here now is a little different. They're a little different looking report. These are the commentary reports. These are where I'm taking each department without getting funding specific and explaining what that functional department is moving in its budget, regardless of where its money's coming from.
And that's on page 57.
Page 57, yes. Now, the reports that will follow this, in just a moment I'll show you, if you want to get into why is a department significantly increasing its budget, and I've told you what the budget is, and you want to know, okay, what pot of money is being utilized, what individual accounting units are contributing to this department's increase, then there'll be reports similar to the ones you've seen before that were segregated by, or separated by funding source. This will be separated by group. So it'll do the same thing when we get to that level 3. It'll look just like what we just went through. The Strategy Department has roughly a 50% increase over the 07 budget and its 06 actuals. It's got a budget increase of 2.5 new positions, and for the most part, that's driving these variances, the extra 2.5 people. And we can have budgeted half people because we allocate, and we do a lot of allocating of people's time outside to multiple departments. The Solutions Department is flat with the 07 budget with just a slight increase over 06 actuals. Anytime we see a flat budget compared to 07 and a minimal increase over 06, that tells you two things. They're staying operational on their funding level from year to year, and they spend their budget. Mr. Chairman.
What is the Solutions Department?
I can't hear.
The Solutions Department helps primarily in grant writing, and they work with all of the programs in finding and applying for grants. They also work closely with strategy and trying to focus on which grants are going to fit best for our operations.
Thank you.
And what is strategy?
Yes.
And what is strategy?
The strategy group oversees the balanced scorecard. They provide training for all of the programs. They participate in the strategic budget committee. They are responsible for helping provide the direction to make sure that all of our employees are focused on jobs, communities, and the strategic outcomes that we have set.
Next department is the Communication Department in the Chief. They're asking for a 14% increase over their 07 budget It's in operational line items of $132,000, with salary and fringe increasing by $88,000 and additional contract funding for $30,000. It's a $1.2 million increase over the 06 actuals, and $750,000 of that. $750,000 of that increase is that image campaign that was funded in 07. That was not expended in 06. I think that was. It may have been funded in 06, but I believe that it was, wasn't that a part of the petition or something? Yeah, the core stayed in 06, so we actually got spent in 07. So that's what a majority of that increase is. The additional $500,000 increase over 06 in the communication budget is largely salary and benefits of $220,000, and the costs related to those extra staff, $145 million.
Yes.
So when you're going over these, this is salary. When they're asking for these increases in salary and wages, it's in this budget, but then we also have another pool that comes from, a 2% pool for salaries.
The 2% pool, I believe, is the appreciation merit one-time incentive comp, basically. It's an incentive comp, isn't it?
Right. Each of the departments budgets their employees and their staffing, which is their wages plus an anticipated 3% merit pool for all of the employees. The request under the employee appreciation budget is for the 2%, which would be a merit bonus.
Okay, thank you.
Tribal relations, which is, as I noted here, basically the registration department, has no change to their budget, and a 17% increase due to a staffing level increase over 06 level. And the workload in the registration department was backlogging in 07, and the tribal council upped their budget to give them some additional extra duty funding and staff help to address that backlog. The next page, page 59, shows you where the funding for the Office of the Chief is coming from. The $2.8 million increase, 2.6 of it is in the Gen Fund. 8 of the $8.4 million increase over 06 actuals are also in the General Fund. The next page, page 60, is where we take that and we break it down by the departments that I just went over. Okay? Where, for instance, let's just take one for instance. Communications, $253,000 increase. You'll see that $207,000 of that was funded by the tribal discretionary fund, and $46,000 from the indirect cost pool. Okay, and again, we go down the philosophy of this gets us to a certain level of information. If you want to drill it down further and figure out what are the budgets, the individual budgets that's coming out of these funding sources in this department, then the next page, again, is a level 3 report, which will get you there with the hat turned around, looking at it by group first instead of funding source. Okay? And I realize that some of this looks redundant, but we're looking at it from a different set of glasses now. The page 61 is where, you know, that's the level of detail right there in the accounting units. And when you get to this level, you will see the actual accounting units that I just went over. Okay? Because I wanted you to have the ability to read my commentaries without having to do the analytical work of deciphering where are these increases and decreases happening in those, out of that big blue book. Okay? So, Mr. Chair, as far as going over these level 3 detail reports, which is going to be somewhat redundant, is what we just did on the discretionaries. The visibility is here by group. So it's at your pleasure. How do you want to proceed?
But this is also where, if they have any questions or comments,
This is the
place. Dr. Cobb.
I would like to see a discussion whether we want those group leaders to come in now and go through those. And
No, actually, it's arranged. Whenever we get to each of these groups, we will.
well, I mean, before we start going through questions individually, I'd like to hear Does that make sense?
Yeah, because Kelly is going to address anything from the chief's office.
Melanie should be here
Or
shortly
Melanie.
also, but I will try to address any questions on the chief's office budget.
Okay.
And then Dr. Morton will be here shortly as we go through the education. So is there anything in the office of the chief? Are there any questions?
Beg your pardon?
In the office of the chief? Chief's office, tab 01.
Again, the obvious in the chief's office is going to be, a couple of significant budgets that we've already gone over. It's going to be the charitable contributions going up by $750,000, primarily for the PACE programs, first year operating expenses, and then the increase to the Constitutional Defense Fund. Those two are we have an Employee Appreciation Day increase of $467,000. Beyond that, there's some departmental increases on strategy and solutions that are much less in dollar amount, but the lion's share of the increase are those items.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Sutton.
I've got a question for Alan. On the Employee Appreciation Day, we got an increase of 20%,
Yes.
and then last year we were slightly under budget, which, can you explain that significant increase? And also, I would like to know are we seeing actual positive impact from these appreciation gifts through efficiency increases or behavior changes or attitude changes, et cetera, et cetera? Can you kind of just give me some feedback on that?
Sure. This budget covers several things. It's the Employee Appreciation Day, which happens usually in May, June timeframe. And to address Mr. Soap's question, I think we get a very positive impact to the employees from that. It's really just a day of pleasure for the employees. We do a lot of gifts. We get very positive feedback from that. Another thing that is in here is gift cards that we hand out at Christmas. Last year we did $50 gift cards, and again I think we get very positive feedback from that. The other piece is the merit bonus. To be quite honest, I don't know that we have any overall statistical information to say what the pluses and minuses from that was. Last year was the first year we did that, and I'm sure most of the council members are aware there was some controversy surrounding it. But I can only speak to the the employees in my group. They were appreciative, and we're glad to get it. So we expended almost all of the 2007 budget. The slight increase for 2008 is probably, the most of that is for the 2% merit, because we've had increases in salaries and increases in employees.
Okay. Yes.
On the charitable contributions line item, can you tell me, or is it easy to decipher what was in there last year that's not there this year?
I could, probably the best way to do that is to run a report. We tried to capture all of the donations that were done in '07, but I'll run a report off the accounting system so you can see what we've done. And then in your blue book, there's the detail of all of the proposed donations for '08. And as Doug mentioned, the biggest increase there is the contribution to the PACE program.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Did you get a breakdown on the price of shot or the?
No, not yet. I've requested it. I sent an email, and hopefully I'll have that early afternoon.
Yes.
I've got a question going back here just a little bit to the registration. I'd like to hear from someone if they're caught up, and I keep hearing all these things could possibly be true, that it's taken 3 years for people to get their registration. That's probably, they're not doing it right. I mean, the people turning it in. I'd like to hear some real statistics, as how long it takes. Are they really that far behind? And I'd like to hear from someone in that department.
Okay, that probably should be a rules committee item.
Okay.
And we can
Yes,
ask registration.
I know that they put a lot of emphasis on it, but I would agree with the chairman that that's probably something you'd want to talk about in the Rules Committee.
Mr. Hembry.
Ms. Fulbright, just for personal experience, I turned in my son's application approximately 8 months ago, and it got approved just a couple of weeks ago. So I think if everything's fine, and I've heard statements before that it's about a 9-month process.
It does take quite a while.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the chief's budget? Mr. Sullivan.
Or is the market service in your
Legal resources.
And Kelly will get back to us on the charitable contributions,
Yes, I'll run a report so that we can compare the 2 years.
and then we can come back to that if,
What did you say it was in this?
okay, it's in the,
23.
Page 29, or 23. No,
page 21.
21, yeah.
Is that, Bill Jones, is that, you were asking about Zoe, we talked about Zoe yesterday. Is that in the domestic violence shelter? Is that where?
No, Zoe is a resource center for single women with children. Domestic violence would be like help in crisis, where they're actually out, been taken into in protection from an abusive spouse or something like that.
Yes.
So, what I'm trying to get at is this where Zoe needs to go
That's where Zoe has been in the past.
in the charitable contributions?
That's where it was funded out of in the past.
And there's no Zoe now? Nowhere else in the budget?
Not that I'm aware of. I couldn't-
Do we just write it down, Chairman?
Are you going to find out more on the Zoe?
I believe we determined yesterday that the Zoe Institute was not in the charitable contributions.
So it's whatever your pleasure is with to add it, or do we know how much was given in the past?
38,000, and that was their request again.
And they're getting referrals from all of this county plus all surrounding counties. It's the only program of its type that I know of in this area. I would make a motion that we reinstate it if this is the proper time to do
Yes,
so. I
it
don't
is.
want to.
No, it is.
Because I wasn't real sure how you wanted to do
Right.
that.
Yes, it is. As we're going through these tabs, it's the proper time. But it doesn't exclude us from coming back later also. But this is the time.
It doesn't exclude us. I mean,
It is,
if
right.
after we look at her little summary.
Right.
Okay.
So do you want to continue with your motion on this?
I would make a motion on the charitable contributions under the chief section that we reinstate the Zoe Institute in the amount of $38,000, which I think is previous year's funding.
I'll second that.
Okay. Yes, Mr. England. Discussion now.
I have a question on this, on the motion that's on the floor. Does this include all 14 counties or just Cherokee County and the surrounding county of Cherokee County?
I know that they're getting referrals from surrounding counties in this county. I don't know if it reaches the whole 14 counties. I do not
I
know
will
that.
support it unless it includes all 14 counties.
I would assume if anyone wants to take part in it, that they can from the whole 14 counties. I just don't know how far Norma Merriman makes a lot of the referrals to them, so I don't know how far she's asking them to come in.
We need somebody from that department to tell us before I can confidently vote on something like this. I feel like we need Norma to tell us where this includes.
Okay, Ms. Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to understand how the money was spent in the past. We've spent a considerable amount of Cherokee people's money with this organization, and I've seen no accountability. Where's the recent audits? What's their 501c3 status and all that other stuff? Because if we're going to put that kind of money into it, I would hope that the body would have 17 copies of all kinds of information that shows that we're being accountable for Cherokee people's money.
I have a question, because I've been involved with some nonprofit charities over in Adair County. The ones that we do on a smaller size, the government waives the audit for us because we do not, it would eat up our budget if we had to pay for an outside person to come in and audit us. So what is our guidelines for that? Because I'm curious, because I've got people back home that's asking me this question. Jody, we're working with small money. We can't afford to take what we're giving to these people and pay, for these outside audits. So I know the government waives it, and I'd kind of like to know from my involvement with these charities, because churches set up a lot of these. I mean, these are small things.
I think that would be an administrative policy, and I don't know whether there is one in place.
Because I feel bad asking a charity that doesn't take in $30,000 a year, that I know $29,000 of it goes to the actual good of the people, to please set aside another $3,000 or $4,000 for an audit. I can't ask churches to do that. I mean, to be honest, I can't do it.
Ms. Ketcher, you had...
Under the current act, we don't require an audit, but I think we do want to reserve the right to request a report or copies of receipts or something along those lines to show where the money's going to. And to Councilor Watts' point, I think you all have different charitable organizations maybe that are only in your community, and it helps if there's information that's brought forward to the body to help understand what services these provide, how long they've been around, that type of basic information.
Can I ask you?
Okay.
Ms. Jordan and then Mr. Sullivan.
Well, are we getting audits from all of these organizations, and do we know whether all of these organizations are working in all 14 counties?
We do not. As I stated, we don't require an audit. What we do try to do is reserve the right to request follow-up documentation if questions arise.
Mr. Sullivan.
What's their current practice now as far as, for budget purposes, you say these are the organizations and the anticipated amounts that we're going to allocate to this general aid line or whatever. So, in practice, what are you doing? As far as, are you on target for that, or is there a little bit of variance, discretion, you might say, to the chief's office to who receives these charitable donations? And in fact, are there options for modifications in the future?
There are options for modification. The ones that are specified in your budget book are the ones that we give the money to, and the exact amount that we give to them. There's $20,000 in this budget proposal that is undesignated, and as requests come forward, those would be brought to E&F and say we've received a request for X number of dollars to be taken from the undesignated contributions.
I don't mind withdrawing my motion if you'll withdraw his second. If Kelly will come in and tell me, or have somebody come in and tell me how Will Rogers Museum of $10,000 helps me in Cherokee County. Let's go down the list here. Not all of these are working in all 14 counties. So if we have a project we see a big need for here, I probably can't justify it up in Buell's area, but then I don't think Buell's gonna be able to justify some of the stuff that's in his area down in my area. I mean, let's be a little bit fair about this.
Mr. Baker.
And I would withdraw my second at this time. While I'm having copies made from that report asking for refunding, I think you're going to find that it doesn't matter if you're from Rogers County or Tulsa County or Delaware or Mays, this is the capital of the Cherokee Nation. And each and every one of you have constituents that come here to go to school, that move here closer when they're in trouble so that they can have Hastings Medical Center as a resource and a backup. They come and get housing from our housing authority where they can have access to the tribe, have access to the health care, and many times that single mom moves to this area so that she can continue her education, whether it be through the VOTEC or through the university. And not only does DHS, but our own Indian Child Welfare and our own Human Services use these people as a major resource. Now, how many times has the chief said that, when we spend our money, let's spend it smart, and let's not keep reinventing the wheel? And how many times if we do the program ourselves, then we've got salaries and overhead and all these other things. Well, for $38,000, I think you're going to find that these people have almost weekly programs for these at-risk mothers, and it helps their kids. And they do some things like a movie night out. They do a divorce crisis training. They do, you can read it along, but I wish each and every one would look at this program. It's one that, my wife gives personally to. It's one that I think we as a tribe ought to look at. Don Garvin and myself both gave community assistance money to them because it is a heck of a program. And it will take care of people in the other counties. Buell might be one of the exceptions just simply because there are other resources around Tulsa that we don't have in rural Oklahoma. And I think it's a great program, but I'll withdraw that second for now.
And then I have another motion.
Okay. First, I have Ms. Watson, then Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the passion for the organization. I think we're all here to serve our respective areas, and I don't think either Councilman England's remarks or my concerns were meant to question anything other than from an accountability for the entire 14 counties and for the Cherokee people's money. The defensiveness that's been presented almost makes me beg the question that there's not accountability there, rather than just saying we can table it to the end of the day and we will have Zoe bring those documents forward of some kind that shows that there are money that has been accounted for the Cherokee people. That's all we're asking for. And I think that I took Mr. England's response or question totally differently. It's very easy to spend a lot of money here in the capital of the Cherokee Nation. Extremely easy, because all the staff is pretty much right here in the backyard. We are tasked with taking that out to those constituents that are an hour and 2 hours away. So I don't think the question was only the question was more like, why are we not spreading the money throughout the 14 counties, and why is there not a budget available to all to be competitive for that single moms? Not that we want to exclude Zoe from being the only one, the Zoe Institute, but more like, why is it not available to the whole 14 counties, and why do we not have documents that show this amount of money has been accounted for? The other organizations where we've expended money, they've come back with presentations that have pictures of the people we affected at the event that we may have funded, or they had the documents that showed how the money was expended. I don't know that any receipts have been provided that shows that money that we've expended in the past has ever been spent in the way that we talked about. It didn't say how many participants we impacted. It didn't say if they were Cherokee, if they were non-Indian, if they were other Indian. He didn't say how we impacted them. I'm asking that is, and I'm kind of offended. The Will Rogers Museum, that is the son of the Cherokee Nation. Yes, it happens to be in Cromwell because that's where he's from. I didn't know about it until I saw it in the budget. But that is a bookend of our cultural tourism, and it's one of the things. And 10,000 is much smaller than 38,000, and that's a public budget which is easily accessible through the state of Oklahoma. So, but if you guys need something, I can call up and we can get something in the memorial. And I have no problem doing that because that's what this body is about accountability. Glad you're passionate about your area, so are we. But I have no problem with supporting Zoe Institute, but as long as we have some accountability to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. So.
Can you explain why this organization was left out of the budget?
I honestly don't know if it was an oversight. I would guess that it maybe was. I don't know.
Ms. Jordan.
Well, I don't have a problem with accountability, but I don't see accountability for any of these other things. So maybe what we should do is back up and ask for accountability on all the programs that we're giving money to, as well as what they've accomplished during the year and how far they expand out into the 14 counties. I'm passionate about our programs. I'm sure Kara's passionate about her programs. I'm not against the Will Rogers Museum, but I don't see any accountability on it either. That was just an example. So I would ask that we be provided with an audit of every one of these programs and how far they extend out into the 14 counties, what they're doing in each and every county. I mean, if that's how we need to do this, well then let's do it for everybody, not just pick on one or the other. We'll just do it for everybody.
Mr. Hembry. Good. Mr. Hembry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I would request is not a term of, not to use the term audit, because that has a legal connotation, a legal definition to it, and would require a certified public accountant to come in and do a report on your books, which would be expensive to the overhead of these organizations. What I would recommend is that a policy be suggested that what's the word that I'm looking for in accounting, some type of balance sheet be given as to the expenses and just the expenses of the money that is generated by the Cherokee Nation. If also a narrative of what they've actually done, and if we require in particular that of how many Cherokee citizens it reached in what areas. We just need to suggest a policy be suggested by the administration that when you get this money, you're going to give us a balance sheet of what you spent it on, how many people that you served, where these people were served, and how many were Cherokee citizens. Something very simple that these organizations could handle outside the full-fledged audit. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
My question addressed that when they use the term audit. That's what I wanted cleared up, because like I said, folks, I'm not going to go back to my church or my organization that's helping someone and request that they spend 20% of their budget on an audit. So we need to come to some kind of agreement on this. Unless you want to go to your churches and your organizations and question them or ask them for this extra expense. So can we all come to the definition of a...
Yep. Mr. Sullivan, and then Mr. Thornton, and then Ms. Fraser.
You don't have them?
In the description, it says 50,000 to domestic shelters, citizen advocates, 52,000. What is that? Can you elaborate on that for me?
The domestic shelters, I'm getting a list. I requested that, and Kathy Cheater's working on it. CASA, that's the court-appointed special advocate, and that's a donation that we've made several years now.
But the shelters is not defined at this time, and is this something that falls within that description?
That's what I'm trying to determine, because initially I thought it might have fallen within the shelter description. So I'll get that answer
But
shortly.
there is money within this charitable budget that is dedicated to shelters, whether they be youth, domestic, violence shelters, or whatever. We've attributed and accounted for a donation to
We have
that
set aside funds for that,
particular area.
for shelters.
Mr. Dorn.
What really interests me here is, since we're going to be, and I don't know whether we've made this policy or not, is this policy that we're going to bring forward or thinking about bringing forward, is it going to cover last year, the year before that, the year before that, or we're going to go back and ask these organizations and these people to come up with receipts, or are we going to start this and go forward from here?
Well, I would say if we're going to set a policy that this is not the place to set it, that once again, it is the Rules Committee.
Yeah, but we're talking about it.
Right, we are.
Right.
It is being discussed.
And also, these community organizations, we're talking about distributing money out into the different districts, and I'm sure that some of these organizations have received X amount, which is very much larger than other communities have received, and we need to go back and check that and see if people up in Adair County or Rogers County or wherever has received more than the communities down in my county and Cherokee County or wherever. And maybe we need to bring that forward and straighten that all up and just evenly distribute this money out, if that's what we're going to do. But, that can go around more than one way for these different organizations. And I think that we're going to get in a cesspool before we get over this thing, if we're going to start that type of stuff, if that's what you want to do.
Ms. Fraley?
Hearing two different sides here. Exactly what does the law say as it's currently written? Do you remember?
Well, we're talking basically, I guess we need to get on the, whether we're talking apples or oranges.
Right.
Okay. Now, there is the Community Assistance Fund, which is, covered by legislative act. Now, that, there is no basis for the law right now for any type of accountability. I've talked with Ms. Karen Watts, where there's what she is proposing an amendment to have some type of accountability placed in that act. As to the distribution under the act, equally distribution. That's why it's divided between counselors to ensure that there's going to be an equal distribution of that money throughout the 14-county area. Now, that's the apples. Now, this is oranges, okay? We're talking about charitable contributions from the Office of the Chief, correct? Okay. Now, it is my understanding that he is going, that he has chosen these projects for their particular work, and it is in his budget for you all to approve each one of these. Now, if you want to make sure that those are equitably distributed throughout the 14-county area, that's where you're going to be, that's your discussion right here. Now, if there's going to be an accountability of these monies, that would be an administrative policy that should come from the Office of the Chief, not dictated here. We can dictate what you all do in the Community Assistance Act, but as to the accountability of it, of this money, the orange money, the oranges, as to the Office of the Chief's charitable contribution, that should be a policy by the executive branch.
Okay, very good. Bill John, you up next.
And I'm not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
Can we actually discriminate, like request receipts or accountability from Zoe, but not request it from somebody's organization in Mays County, for instance? is it, if it's questionable, we can do that, if I'm understanding this correct, but can we discriminate like that?
I would suggest that you not discriminate that way. But like I said, the chief could come with this proposed budget and what it is for his charitable contributions, and he could say, I'm giving all this money to organizations in Adair County. That's his proposal. Okay. You all can say, well, that's not really equitable and fair, and you can reject that budget and pass another one. That's what this budget process is for. Okay. If you are going to require accountability, it needs to be uniform and across the board for all organizations. If you want to legislate that, that's going to be a legislative act outside of this budget process. Because right now, this is budgeted in the office of the chief. The office of the chief would set the policies of how he wants the accountability for this organization, for these organizations, and where these organizations are located to give money to. This is the chief's suggestion on how to do it. If you all have a different opinion, this is the budget process to divide that, to say, no, chief, we reject your suggestion. We're going with organizations in other areas, and we're going to pass a legislative act or a policy through Rules Committee that's going to dictate that. But right now, this is the suggestion of the chief, and I would leave it up to the purview of the chief to have whatever accountability he wanted from those organizations.
That's good.
Thank you.
Julie. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, and Todd, you could have thrown in the deal about the Constitution where it says that all donations of the Cherokee Nation will be made by this council.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
He could not just...
His suggestion.
It's his suggestion, and this is the budget. If you when you pass a budget, it's going to have, you're approving those charitable donations.
I did pass out some information on Zoe. I called over there. The director was at the warehouse today in grungies and what have you, giving out clothing and those kinds of things. But she's going to try to be here in 30 minutes, and if we break for lunch, then I assume I can maybe buy her lunch and get her to stick around till 1 o'clock. But I really would encourage everybody to read this. I mean, the second paragraph is probably more information than we get from 90% of the folks that, Red Cross has never told us what they did. You go on and on of the donations that we make that help all classes of people, not just Cherokees. In this particular case, she says a large percentage of their participants are Cherokee tribal members. 54% of the women that attend their conferences are Native American. 83% at the last one and identified themselves as Cherokee. It goes on to tell you that they're a resource not only for the tribe but DHS and for Help in Crisis and Hope House and all these other organizations, and I think you'll be quite impressed when this lady comes, maybe not at her clothes or the way she's dressed, but at her program. And because, we sat here and looked at the charts yesterday, and the poorest Cherokees are in Cherokee, Adair, Sequoia, Delaware, Mays County. That's where the poor Cherokees are. And the poorest of the poor are the single moms. So, yeah. So anyway, okay. I would like to put this on the table until this lady can get here.
Is there a motion to table? Well, actually, there's no motion.
No, we withdrew the motion, yeah.
Okay. Well, I have Mr. Garvin, Ms. Fishing-Long, Mr. Crittenden, and Dr. Cobb. Mr. Garvin.
I think part of this problem goes back to one man, one vote, and we need to look at that real soon. But we get talking about distributing this money equally. We haven't been doing that, and we're not doing it in this budget. So think about one man, one vote. I know somebody voted twice, somebody voted once. I was one of those that voted once, and these people out here behind me voted twice.
Okay. Ms. Fisher-Gall.
I'm confused, but anyway, what in the world is Lightfoot 50,000?
Pardon?
What is Lightfoot for 50,000? Is he the rapper?
Do you have?
He's the Cherokee rapper. He has an anti-drug message, goes all over the United States, part of an anti-drug campaign.
Do we usually fund him 50,000 or something?
No, I don't think we always fund 50,000. I'm running a report to see what the actuals are for 2007.
So he's non-profit like the rest, and I get confused on that.
I'll check. I know I'm vaguely familiar because he came here and did an anti-drug program. So I'll look into that for you.
Okay. Mr. Craven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick comment. I know we have our own districts that we represent, but I also represent, as far as I know, the other 14, or the other 8 districts, or the total 14 counties. As far as that goes, at-large folks, I guess, to some degree, as far as their best interest. But I've heard Kelly, I think, a couple of different times on some of these line items or whatever, say it might have been an oversight, it might have been this, something was left out or whatever. I just wonder if the possibility might exist that this Zoe thing might have been an oversight.
It is possible. Melanie is on her way over. I don't know. I do know that we donated the $38,000 in 2007. So it's quite possible it could have been an oversight. I will have a report this afternoon of our actual donations.
That being the case, it's possible, Mr. Chairman, it might be a lot smoother, a lot more palatable if we find out it was an oversight and it's put back in. That's the end of my comment.
Okay. Dr. Collins. Yes.
I asked Callie in her report that she's going to provide this afternoon if she could also identify the new ones to this budget that are not repeats.
Okay. Mr. Baker.
Yes, with the indulgence of the committee, Rhonda Clements is here at this time. She's the executive director of the Zoe Institute, and if I could yield some time for her to explain her program, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Hi. I was actually working at the warehouse today, our community warehouse, so I apologize for the way I'm dressed. I was putting up food and making diaper packs, and we serve a lot of people through the warehouse. Zoe's a wonderful program. We were established in 2004 to primarily serve single moms and their children. About 58% of children in Cherokee County and surrounding areas are being raised by single mothers. And so that was our primary thing when we first established it. We didn't want to be a crisis agency. We wanted to be an agency where we were really proactive in providing these women with classes, education, support groups to help them better themselves. A lot of times women get real isolated. That's a big problem that a lot of women face, especially in poverty and in our isolated areas around here. And because of that isolation, oftentimes they make bad decisions. So we provide a place we have a couple of classes a week going on, good child care where they can come and be around people that are trying to make better decisions. We also know that you can't speak into someone's life if they're hungry or if their kids don't have clothes and that sort of thing. So we also started the community warehouse where we collect items from the community, then we give them back out to the families once a week. And we serve just needy families through that. We have a jail ministry that we're involved in. We have a mentoring program that we work with these women. We have a housing reestablishment program where the women who are moving out of the shelters, like Help in Crisis and and the Hope House, then we're able to kick in and provide some things for them that we don't repeat what other agencies do. We work hard to be unique and to fill those gaps that other agencies aren't filling. We serve a lot of Cherokee families. If you were sitting down there this morning and see the people who come in, most of them are very visibly Native American that I saw this morning down there.
Dr. Cobb, did you have a
When she's finished, if that's okay, after she's finished.
We teach 15 different curriculums to the women, which include financial literacy, parenting, a lot of relationship courses where we teach them like state people and boundaries, where you can teach them to, a lot of times women will choose the same kind of man to bring in their life over and over again unless they're educated about why they're doing what they do. So we spend a lot of time prevention-wise, getting ready to kick off divorce care and divorce care for kids. Cherokee Nation, we work with Norma Merriman, a lot of the Rick Gasaway. A lot of the agencies refer people to us all the time because we do provide such a niche of services that they can't really get elsewhere. The majority of our women that attend our classes and conferences, 54% are Native American. Of those, about 83% of those are Cherokee women. Right out half or more of the people, just the general call-ins, on the phone or that come into the office are Cherokee that we track. So I could just go on and on with numbers.
Oh, we have. Do you have a question?
Yes. I was on a board of a place similar to this in Bartlesville called the Place of Hope, and I know our director, the last thing she wanted to do was get up in front of a group and talk, so I know you're probably nervous, but we were a center for grieving children that have lost a parent, a sibling, some family member, and we recently after 10 years, shut down because of lack of funding, and we had numbers similar to what you have, and it was a difficult decision. And so I don't have, I think what you're doing is great, and I mean that sincerely because I know what you're doing. I was on board with a place like this. My concern is, and I think everyone in this room, or at least on this council, has run across this at least once or twice a day where someone identifies themselves as Native American, identifies themselves as Cherokee, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but to say someone is obviously American Indian or Cherokee, that may be the case, but we're talking about putting something in a budget that goes to the chief's office, and quite honestly, I want to see the blue cards. I want to know, I want to see, are they citizens? I don't want them to walk up and say, well, I'm Cherokee, I want to see the blue card. So I inherently don't have a problem at all with your institution. But I want to see a little bit more than just identified. I actually want to know, do they have a blue card is what I want to know. Because if we're going to present this to the chief's office for a budget, I don't want to put, obviously, them in a position where we're funding something that, and quite honestly, in Cherokee County, I don't really think that's going to be a problem. But I just to dot the I's and everything, cross the T's, that's what I'd like to see.
Ms. Watts.
Thank you. On your numbers, what is your total budget?
Per year?
Yeah, your annual operating.
This year, our annual operating is around $145,000.
Okay, so this request would be about a third of it. Where is the other revenue coming from?
We receive several grants. We actually last year got our first federal grant, which shows you the level of accountability that we have, that we've already been able to attract some of that funding. We receive from area churches. We're the Ministerial Alliance, which is about 15 area churches. They support our efforts, and we receive a small, contribution from them.
What is your unmet need on that operating budget?
This is for us to meet our operating budget. Cherokee, the $38,000 is part of that, of our need.
So it doesn't expand, it only meets your existing budget needs?
It expands somewhat, but I don't have I didn't even get to go to my office to get my files, so to tell you exactly there. But we've expanded every year. We've served more families.
Would you have any issue with providing us, showing that some accountability, like with a letter or something, that this is how that money was spent in the budget, or, some...
Sure.
I mean,
We're audited each year also, so we have our audited financials, that we would also be glad to provide for you.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Sutton. Okay. Are there any other questions? Ms. Clemens? Okay.
I move we fund $38,000 for Zilla.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded that we fund $38,000. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. A hand vote. Those in favor? Okay, those opposed? Okay, 5 in favor, 9 in favor, 5 opposed. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rhonda.
Mr. Chair,
I don't
Yes.
have one with me.
would you within a reasonable time provide us the audit for our
Sure.
records
Yeah, I can
from
get
your
it.
prior year?
Yes.
And per Brad's request from this point forward, I'm the new representative from Cherokee County. I've never met you. I checked out your organization through a number of other community sources. So I work.
You probably heard good things, didn't you?
Yes, I heard very good things. But could
I will
you,
provide you with anything that you...
could I suggest that from this point forward, as people come to you for assistance, will you ask for their blue cards, a copy of it? And then maybe this will help us in
Okay.
future.
We can definitely do that, because I want to give you what you need to make good decisions too. So.
And I want to get a card from you too.
Okay, I'll get that back up here.
Okay. Thank you for coming down.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, Rhonda. Okay. Are there any other items on the chief's budget? If not, the council budget? No.
Go to Barbara. The tribal council budget, you see here,
Mr. Sutton, excuse me.
I'm sorry, before we move on, I got a question about, since I'm new to this process, whenever the council amends the departmental budgets in the way that we just assumedly did, and that carries through to the final budget, what does that mean as far as the opportunity for them to change this allocation in this department? Is there, in fact, an additional discussion that takes place and happens after we vote, or how does that work? Let's say if Party Buzzard is the chief over here, and he comes back and says that, I want this line item in this budget to equal $750,000. The council moves to increase that to $775,000. Then what opportunity does the chief have to come back and modify that?
Okay. Mr. Hembry.
It would be the veto. He would, you're going motion by motion, and then at the end, you're going to pass a budget, the FY08 budget. The chief at that point can either, let's say it goes all the way through full council and it passes. The chief can look at that budget and say, I don't agree with this, so therefore I'm going to veto it. And then you could, it's either, the veto is either sustained or overridden. But I guess in essence and if it's vetoed and it's not overridden, you go back and forth until something happens. But he's put forth a suggestion. You, as your constitutional power is to pass a budget. Whatever you pass, that's the law. Now he can either sign it or he can veto it. Is the process.
It's not line item, it's
Yep. And he can't pick out a line item to do it. It's either all or nothing. We have disagreements on that, and there's going to be a court case on that hopefully on Friday. But in my opinion, I think the vast majority of opinions is that there is no line item veto. You either sign it all or you sign, or
Thank you for clarifying that as we go through this, and since this was the first opportunity.
Okay.
By the way, spending authority does end at 9:30 on discretionary funds if there's no budget passed. By law. Okay. The decrease here from the 07 budgets, the omission of the Legistar carryover that'll be coming forward, as well as the 100,000 expansion planning that's not in the 08 budget. Considerable increase over 06 actuals. And again, there was constitutional implementation on this branch, as well as staffing increases that occurred in the 07 budget wasn't represented in 06 actuals. Funding sources, you can see that about 2/3 IDC, or Gen Fund, and 1/3 IDC. They're relatively flat as far as our operating budget because, again, we just repeated our 07 budget into 08. And these obviously will change as we get our budget approved.
Mr. Thorne.
Doug, it's been several years ago, but I read something in the federal regulations that the tribes, the chief and the legislation, the council could charge IDC funds. Now, is there something, did I read that wrong, or?
Said they could or could not?
Said they could.
I've read some things that saying that they shouldn't, but
Could I address that?
Yes.
We have been successful in including half of the tribal council, half of the chief, and half of our justice department in our IDC pool. For 2007, when we were going through our negotiation process, they brought up this, it's a letter, or I guess an opinion, from the IG that says specifically tribal council budgets or tribal council expenses are not allowed in the IDC pool unless they perform more than a governmental function. And in some of the email back and forth, the IG's office informed us that for 2008, they're not going to accept the tribal council, the chief, or the justice department unless we provide a lot more documentation. Now, we're still going to try to do that, and we're going to try to get them all the documentation they need, but it's out there as an unknown right now whether they will accept it or not.
Especially
Good question. It's about 15 till 12. We're starting the tribal council budgets. Part of our people, we're going to rehash an argument is outside. Can we not adjourn for lunch? Or do I make a motion?
You make a motion to recess?
I make a motion to recess.
Second.
Okay. Then back at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.